everyone hear me okay? My name is Karla Benkula. I live here in Topeka, Kansas, and I'd like to thank you for giving me this opportunity to introduce you to my mother, Lois Benkula, and tell her story. Lois was a woman who was full of life, and very much a free spirit. She was a cheerleader in high school. In 1959, she was crowned Miss St. Joe in St. Joe, Missouri. She participated in high school plays. She sang the Sweet Adelines. And she loved to be. Soon after my father was discharged from the Air Force, she found herself being thrown into the role of being a single parent to raise an infant daughter all alone. She and I faced life together, and we found great strength in our journey together. She worked as a secretary for an advertising firm during the week, and on the weekends we would clean those same offices together to make ends meet. She worked hard and became a very savvy businesswoman, becoming the director of a business school, and at one point in time owning her own business school. She loved to entertain in her beautifully restored Victorian home. She was actively involved with the Stevens ministry. She loved her church. She loved to entertain. She traveled the world and experienced many wonders in her life. She and I were a team, and nothing could keep us down. From her, I learned the value of hard work, compassion, how to find joy in small things, and the value of family. Mama always had strong instincts and was never afraid to stand up for what she believed to be true and right. She instilled the strength in me, which is what brings me here today. At the age of 72, my mother was diagnosed with dementia, and instead of accepting her fate, she chose to try to stay strong and try to overcome. This was very hard for her because her illness was not corroborating with her will to stay the person she knew herself to be. The facility that she was placed in was the only facility with an opening at her time of need. It was more than an hour away, so I was only able to visit her on the weekends, and I tried to call her every night by phone. At this point in time, Mama was still lucid enough to remember her home that she no longer had, some of her friends and family that she no longer spent time with, and her independence she no longer knew. She grieved these losses and became more afraid of losing who she was and who she knew herself to be. Her life became no more than getting out of bed each morning, being shuffled to a TV room, left to stare at a TV screen all day, except to take meals. When she initially arrived at the facility, she entered with a medication list of only 5 prescribed medications, of only 1 which was for dementia. The other 4 medications were supplements. As time passed, she was prescribed other medications without my knowledge or consent. Mama began to refuse her medication because it made her feel funny. She would see the medication in her food, so she wouldn't eat. She would see them put the medication in her drink, so at times she wouldn't take liquids. and at other times she would cheek them and hide them in her mouth and spit them in the trash. She would giggle when she told me about cheeking the medicines. She thought she was really doing something, getting by with something, and I told her it was okay, she could do that. Finally, the nursing staff contacted me saying she wouldn't take her meds, and I told them that by law, she had the right to refuse those medications. My statement was met with silence. 2 weeks later, I was at work and I was contacted by the facility saying they were going to email me documents that needed to be signed and faxed back immediately. I asked what the documents were for, and I was told that my mother had been sent to a geriatric psychiatric mental hospital in Salina, Kansas for evaluation. I asked why she was being sent there, and I was told it was because she was acting out. I told the director of nursing that I wanted to come and see her before they took her, and I was told that she had already been transported earlier that morning, again without my knowledge or my consent. I had called the facility in Salina, Kansas to find out the location so I could go see my mother and speak with her and be with her, and I was told I wasn't allowed to see her or visit her or speak with her until she returned to the nursing facility. So for 30 days, I had no contact with her. I didn't know what was happening. I didn't know why she was there. I didn't know if she was okay. When she returned to the nursing home, I was told that she had been diagnosed as bipolar, and she was now taking medication to treat mental illness. My mother is not bipolar, and she is not mentally ill. She has dementia. Mom, when she was awake, wouldn't laugh, wouldn't smile, speak, or show any emotion whatsoever. She was unable to participate in conversations, and she didn't look anyone in the eye. She literally sat there and blankly stared at nothing. It was as if her soul was asleep, like it was gone. I told the director of nursing that I didn't want her on that medication that was making her be this way and that was causing these symptoms, and I was told that they would lessen her dosage, which they did do. The only difference that made was that she wasn't asleep when I went to see her. One day I went to, made a surprise visit to see my mother in the middle of the week. And when I got there, I was told that my mother no longer remembered me, only as an infant, that she was smearing feces on the walls and on her bedding and on her clothes and on the floor. She was in the final stages of dementia and probably wouldn't last long. My heart broke and my family's heart broke. We thought we'd already lost her. Then the activities director told me that she would take me back to see Mom. And on the way, walking back to see her, she told me that Mom wasn't smearing feces on the walls or on herself, and that she did remember me. That what I had been told wasn't accurate. This was only one example of one situation. There are others like this, and this was not an isolated incident. My instincts told me that something was terribly wrong, and I was really afraid for her. I felt like I was failing. This woman who protected me stood by my side through life's lessons, who loved me, now needed me to protect her, but I didn't know how. I felt helpless while I watched her wither away both mentally and physically. I was watching her become a living corpse. It was as if her soul left her body but forgot to take her body with them. I remember what she always said when times were hard and I didn't know what we were going to do. She would always say, "You just do it. You just do it. It can't eat you." So I decided I was just going to do it. I started, metaphorically speaking, I started turning over rocks. Under each rock was another rock. Under those rocks, little by little, one by one, I found resources. I gained knowledge, and we all know that knowledge is power. I finally met my two strongest advocates and warriors, one being the Kansas Long-Term Care Ombudsman, and the other being Human Rights Watch. I was contacted by an advocate with Human Rights Watch, and she came with me to visit my mother. She asked me permission if she could see my mother's medication list. So I asked the CNA, it was on the weekend, I asked for that medication list, and she told me it would be 2 or 3 days before I would be able to have access to it. It was right there. She could have made a copy, so I persisted, and I finally got a copy, and I handed it over to the person that was with me. She reviewed that medications list, and there were 4, if I remember correctly, 4 antipsychotic medications prescribed. Up until that point, I did not know that they were being given to my mother. Another thing I found was that her medications list had grown exponentially. There wasn't just 5 medications on there anymore. It was 21. With the help from the Kansas agency, I was able to move my mother to a nursing home here in Topeka a year ago. Her medications were immediately reevaluated by the physician, and she was taken off all antipsychotic medications, and her medications list lessened dramatically. She was only given what she needed medically. Within a few weeks, the difference in my mother was phenomenal. Her skin looked healthy. The sores were gone. Her hair was clean. Her teeth were clean. Her clothes are clean. She smiles. She laughs. She dances. She has a conversation with us. She still has dementia, and it's advancing. There's nothing that we can do about that. She still has her bad days, but she is not treated with antipsychotic medication. Where she's at now, they spend time with her. They walk with her, they talk with her, they make her comfortable, they redirect her. She's not drugged. She's allowed to be alive. She's allowed to grieve. She's allowed to be who she is in the best way possible. Chemical restraint takes away a person's rights. It takes away their dignity of self. And in a sense, it puts a person's soul to sleep. Just because a person has dementia doesn't mean that they are no longer a person with thoughts, feelings, and rights. They still have the right to grieve the loss that they are experiencing, to process those feelings, and to hold on to memories for as long as they're able to be the person God created. They are still beings with feelings that should never be taken away from a person. because they're going through so much already. Instead of chemical restraints, caregivers need to be trained to recognize when a person's needs are not being met. They need to be trained how to find out what need needs to be met and respond appropriately. It only takes a minute to hold someone's hand, to give reassurance, and even get them a glass of water if that's what their immediate need is. It does make a difference. So many residents and facilities don't get physical contact anymore, or if they do, it's minimal, and that makes a difference. They feel lost, lonely, cast aside, and without purpose. They don't have the privileges they once had, and it's not by their choice. Even though it saddens me to see what dementia has taken away from Mama, and I feel angry and cry sometimes because this disease is taking her away from me. But I no longer feel like I'm failing her. And nothing warms my heart more than to sit with her and just put my arm around her or hold her hand and have her stare at our hands and say, "This feels so good." It's that human contact. Thank you for meeting my mother and for listening to what I have to say.